So, welcome to today's podcast, where I'm joined by Richard Garvey from Acer Inbound, based over in America. So, Richard, welcome to the show. How are things in sunny America?
They're sunny, but they're a little odd at the moment. But we're trending towards a better time, so things are looking up.
So, we in Scotland have just entered phase 2 of the exit in the COVID lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
What stage are you guys at? Because I know you were based in New York, but you've got out of there. Obviously,
Yep.
New York probably as bad as the UK in terms of, if not worse, with the COVID thing. So you've escaped to Jacksonville just now. But what's it looking like over there? Are you allowed to go out? What's the situation?
Yeah, so I escaped New York because that was in complete lockdown. We've come down to Florida, and now as soon as we got here last week, now the cases are ramping up in Florida and things are starting to shut down again. So, it just seems to be following me around. So, but hopefully it won't be too bad.
So it's your fault.
Yeah.
That's cool. So for anyone who doesn't know or hasn't heard of you, because we've got a wide and wonderful audience all over the place,
Yep.
Can you give us a bit of a brief background of how long you've been doing? How long's Acer Inbound been around for? How long have you been around for in the industry? Just a brief background of what you've been up to.
So Acer Inbound's pretty new. We launched about 18 months ago. We've been growing since then, and I've been in the SEO world specifically for about 5 years and marketing a bit longer than that, maybe a decade. So I've been around a little bit, but once I started getting my interest in SEO, things ramped up pretty quickly, and see how the fascinating world of everything involved here.
So let me ask you one thing before we talk about how you conduct your business and stuff. So you've been in marketing for 10 years. Acer, you've been doing this SEO thing for about 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
How did it work? How did you actually become Acer Inbound? Did you just work in a marketing agency and say, I'm going to do this alone? Or were you a freelance? Did you become a freelancer and then ended up having an agency? The reason I'm asking is I love hearing how people ended up with an agency. Like, I set out years ago and just ended up with an agency because I hired a sales guy, hired a content writer, and before I knew it, I was like, shit, I need to get an office. And then I had to get an accountant, and it was fucking weird. So how did you enter it?
So it was pretty organically. So I worked at a lot of small businesses. So the marketing budget was small. And then when they wanted to start getting articles and blogs written, we would start writing them. And then I discovered the world of SEO and how to get them to rank. And back then it was a little bit different. So you could have a little bit more tactics and strategies. And then I saw them, working and getting the keywords to the top of Google. And so, okay, that's cool. And then a few years ago, the company shut down I was with, I got laid off. So while I was searching for jobs, one of my connections was like, hey, there's this retail company that's looking for SEO. And I had written a guide about it. And then they said, would you be interested in working for them? So, sure. And then, so once I figured out there was a market for it, and I was like, I'm going to try to help other companies. So I started getting some more connections and reaching out and helping some family businesses. And then, like you mentioned, then it became overwhelming. So I'm like, man, I need to, hire someone else to do all this so I can focus on building the business and then building out the processes and then the sales process, the marketing process, and the SEO process, especially getting all that like a finely tuned engine. But the way we go about it, it's really, that's one of the things I learned is that you can do a decent amount just by like the process and updating the titles, updating the metas, of making sure the keywords are in there. But you're going to hit a plateau and you're going to fall down if you don't really have more of a customized strategy for everybody. So building out these specific pieces of content they need, creating the content based on that value system. And then so it's a little harder to scale, which I'm sure you've had issues with that, and you're, I'm sure most people have, but we're focused on creating high quality content, which is difficult to do.
So obviously that's us going to move on to the value part, of giving people some information. You have a very specific, and I'm not going to say unique because I'm sure there's other people that do similar, but most agencies don't use the same type of strategy as you. You are talking about value, high value content and whatnot. A lot of agencies talk about it, but they don't actually do it. So what they're basically doing is trying to not offer value and take people's money, as far as I'm concerned. And I get that. As an agency, you've got overheads and shit, and you're not really thinking about quality, but you are saying that you do the exact reverse in terms of strategy. So can you talk to us a bit more about that? So if a new client comes to you, signs up on the dotted line, and you agree on something, what are you doing differently from other agencies?
I mean, I don't know if we're doing stuff differently from the good agencies. We're doing stuff different from the bad agencies, as far as we're focusing on creating the content exactly what they need to build. So if it's a B2B company versus a retail company versus another, e-commerce company, the strategy is going to be different. So when we're looking at a B2B company, when, for instance, one of my clients is in the marketing world, they're like a texting platform. So they need to create really high quality, like ultimate guides type thing. So, and that's just, if you're just pushing out, blog post after blog post, they're not going to get any real traffic. They might see this results being put out, like, okay, we're working. And that's what I feel like a lot of agencies do. Like, okay, let's just show them we're doing stuff. But we don't like to do that. So even if it's just one super high quality blog post per month, we would rather do that because we know it's going to end up generating real results versus just pushing out all these different updates and getting these, hidden backlinks somewhere on a blog post that Google's not even going to care about when you say, hey, we got you 200 plus backlinks this month, but they don't mean anything. So we focus on doing everything organically the right way. And the easiest way to build backlinks in that instance is creating the high quality content that people want to share. So we focus on having that connectivity with the client, making sure they're in the process the whole time. So we share the outline with them, we share the draft with them, we make sure they're intimately involved in the process, so everybody's happy in the end. We make sure that we understand their target audience too. So that involves talking to the CEO, talking to the sales team, making sure that we understand what they need so we can create that. So
listen, I get it from your point of view. When I done clients, sometimes we've done things to humor a client. Sometimes the client would in their head see a KPI as being like 5 blog posts a month. That lets them think you're doing some real SEO work, when sometimes you're just doing it to humor them and you're going after some long tail crappy keywords. So totally get what you're doing. But in terms of, the average Joe out there, they're going to say, well, this guy, he's creating high quality content, but what is high quality content? Can you go into telling us a bit about what that actually means? Because that could be a good video, an infographic, a combination of a big blog post with a video, with an infographic. What do you determine as high impact content? It's not surely like just a 4,000 word blog post. There's more to it than that, right?
Yep.
So tell us a bit about what you mean and what that content actually is, because for anyone watching, they'll say, a lot of people just think that word content means text only. And that, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't. So I would love to know, what your high quality content actually looks like.
So once you've determined what keyword you want to go after, the type of content is based on what your research is. So my advice to someone, if they know what they want to go after, is Google it and then see what the top 2, 3, 4, 5 search results are. And that gives you a really good indication of what type of content you need to create. Well, it gives you an exact indication of what content you need to create, because Google is getting smarter and smarter. So the way Google works is it's showing what people want to see to make the experience on Google as good as possible. So when you search something, they want the #1 result to be exactly what you're looking for. And if it's not, if you click on something and you go back to Google, then it tells them that they maybe need to change the rankings a bit. So if you're searching for something and you click on that #1 result, that will give you a really good indication of what you need to build, sort of as far as what it looks like, what type of content it is. If you're searching for something and it's all blog posts, or if it's all product posts, or if it's all home pages, that gives you the insight about what type of content you need to create. So if it's a blog post, then you go into that blog post, and if you're searching for something about how to build rockets or something, it's going to be, or a lawyer or a law-based post, it's going to be a lot more text than if you're looking at something that's like in the marketing world where it's going to be a lot of visuals, a lot of infographics. So just seeing that and understanding what type of content you need to create and then just doing it better than they're doing it is really your only way to rank above them.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Now, talking about, obviously, once you create that content, regardless of what structure that comes in, you know, everyone can release content and what they believe is good content. But I'd like to, you know, and obviously I know you might want to not fully answer this, but can you give us some tips in terms of when you release content, is there a sequence of things that you do to make people like that, you know, like make it go viral? You know, is it like a case of publishing it, you know, then shoving it out to social media, then maybe doing some paid ads on it, then doing some, you know, various other things? What makes you get traction on a good piece of content over the average Joe? Because surely there's guys out there writing good content that doesn't get the traction you get. So it's not just about the content, it's about the sequence of other things that you're doing in the background. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of people focus on that, and that's how it actually throws a lot of people off when they write a piece of content and they push it out to their email subscribers, they push it out to their social, they put it on Reddit, they put it on Quora, they share it with all their friends, and they see this big spike of traffic, and they go, all right, good job, pat myself on the back, great blog post, on to the next one. But they've forgotten the first part, which is creating an awesome piece of content that's going to rank long term. So you have to think about both strategies, and absolutely you want to push it out to your any existing user base you have. You want to push it out to them. So if you have a big email list, if you have a big social list, if you don't have that, just pushing it out on social and pushing out on to your Facebook group so your friends and family can see it. The purpose for getting that initial burst of users into that blog post is to generate the positive on-page experience, and you can see, and Google will see those metrics behind it. Now, if you push it out to everybody and it's a 4,000 word blog post and Google sees they're staying on the page for 10 seconds and leaving, it's not going to go well. So you have to start with that foundation of having an awesome piece of content that people want to read, that's interesting, and that comes with the full user experience. So if it's on Google, it means having a great title. It means having a great meta description that people want to click on. And then when it comes to the actual on page, when they click on it, it has to load quickly. Even if the best piece of content in the world, the best images, the best videos takes 10 seconds to load, you're going to lose over half of your audience before they even have a chance to view it. So it needs to load quickly, and it needs to look nice. So that comes down to, again, understanding what type of content people are looking for. But overall, in general, that means having a lot of white space, having it be very readable, don't have big chunks of text, having nice images in there, and having nice images that actually add value to the piece. That's another thing that we really focus on. So the way it works is we write the outline, we write the content, and then we write image recommendations to hand it off to the graphic designer. And then if I come in and see, you know, a sort of stock image or anything that doesn't add value to it, we pull it out. So the way our general rule of thumb is, if you can look at all the images in a blog post and generally get a feeling of what it's about, then they're good images. If it's just a stock of people in an office looking at a table or something generic like that, it's not going to add any value to the piece, and people are going to drift right over it. It might break up the text a little bit, but it's not focused on creating that value.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Now, one thing you did touch on is obviously the kind of user engagement. You know, if you've got a 4,000 word article and people bounce off it after 10 seconds, you know, it's not going to be a good sign for Google. And I'm a believer in user engagement, trying to keep people on there, having the right call to action, having, obviously the right content to keep people on there. And that, I'm a big believer that user engagement signals will become even more powerful going forward. Mm-hmm. But when you're releasing a great piece of content, do you basically whack it all out to all of the, your email list, social media, and everything else all at once? And if so, obviously you're going to see a massive spike in traffic, but it's then going to tail off. So what do you do, or do you do anything after that? So the aftermath of a great piece of content going out, obviously you're going to have that massive spike because it's just out there, it's new, people are loving it, sharing it, and all that shit. But a month later, that's going to start to drift out. What is there a process at that point where you say we need to keep people reading this, keep the engagement signals going? And what is it you're doing? Do you just regurgitate that out in your social media again, or what is your event like after that?
Well, that depends on the user base of the client. So if they have a good email subscriber list, if they have a good social, we might repost it. But the big thing we do is we focus on building backlinks to that page. So for that long-term growth. So whatever that article is about, we do broken link building. We do just link reclamation type stuff. So trying to get that user signals built up for Google so there's more trust in it. So, and if it's a good piece, people will link to it more. So if it's really, we put out a post and then you just have to let it sort of see how it plays out for a month or 2 months to see what rankings are coming in. And then we look at Search Console to see what it's actually ranking for, making sure it's the right thing that we want it to rank for. And if it's not, sometimes we'll see it's ranking for something slightly different, and then we'll maybe re-optimize the piece again to push for that. So it does take time. So you don't want to be going in there and changing it, every way, which way the wind blows. So a big part of it is trying to build out consistent backlinks to not only the homepage, to that blog page specifically, and then just giving it some time.
But you do also fine tune it as well. That is an important part. Now, one quick question I want to ask you about when you fine tune it. Do you, and this is just a crappy question for me, more than anything. So say this blog post was put out on the 1st of March initially, and it got great, it got great exposure and it was all working well. And then you go back in the 1st of June and say, I need to change a few things here. I'm going to add a little snippet to it as well because this is relevant to the page now. Do you then just click update, or do you republish that as a new post?
We just click update because we don't want to lose any of the backlink authority that post is generating, and that would create broken links if people did link back to it. So that's not a great experience, even with a redirect. So we just keep it with the same URL, the same page, and maybe have update in the title if it's a major update.
Yeah, no, I was just curious to do that. I mean, obviously, when I'm doing SEO, I don't really have dates or anything in my titles, but sometimes I feel that if you change the publish date to something newer, it gives it a little bit of an extra boost. And I was just curious to know if you felt that was a thing. It might not be, by the way. It's just something that happens. And it could be down to just simply updating the content, but we've all got our own weird quirks as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes you think that, by changing that date, it may work. It's not going to do any real harm as long as you're not changing the URL, though. But I was just curious to get your feedback on that. So,
I mean, that would make sense if it was a tech-based article or something that's innovative, so people would want to read something very, very recent. So I haven't really put too much thought about that, but maybe we will. Yeah,
that's something worth thinking about. It might not make a blind bit of difference, but one day we could maybe have another conversation saying, Craig, that really fucking worked, or you're full of shit. It didn't make a blind bit of difference.
Yeah.
So, you're doing your content, you're building your links, and all of that kind of stuff. So is that primarily what you do day to day for customers? Because obviously Acer Inbound is an people have an agency, but it could just be about the content. It could just be about the SEO. Is that a kind of main focus, or do you do a wider range of digital services?
No, we're just sticking with just the SEO, so the on-page SEO and the content. So we toyed around with the idea of offering different things, on the paid side and marketing or email marketing and all that stuff. But we decided at least in the first phase of our growth, we really want to focus on just SEO and just content, just to sort of solidify that process so it's down to a science, and then once we have that, maybe move on to the next thing.
Now, without picking your brain and getting too much about the ins and outs of how you do your job, because obviously you can't give too much away, otherwise people will be doing it for themselves.
That's all right. There's plenty of room for everybody. Go for it.
But do you use any kind of on-page optimization tools like Surfer SEO, POP, Cora? I'm just curious to know, in terms of your internal process, someone writes a piece of content, do they use anything else to kind of optimize that? Just you don't have to say, but I'm just curious to know if you use anything like that.
Yeah, the most effective pieces of software we use are Ahrefs for all our research and backlinking research and keywords and all that stuff and tracking and the biggest piece of content we use or software we use as far as the content side is a piece called Topic, usetopic.com. And that gives you a full outline. It gives you the SEO recommendations. It gives you a grade for your piece based on the keyword usage and the content, and the length, and all that good stuff. So we use that to create a really, really thorough outline. And then from there, we focus on building out the piece. And that it's flawed in some ways because it just bases on what's written in the content, picking up the keywords and making sure all the topics are covered. But there's still a manual aspect of making sure they're covered well and covered thoroughly and make sure it's the right audience. And those tools put together, so the keyword research from Ahrefs and also analytics and Search Console, and then Topic to have that outline created are really, really helpful as far as building out that value-based content.
Yeah, I've never heard the Topic, off the, that's a new one on me, but certainly
it's new. It's similar to ClearScope, if you've heard of that.
Yeah. I've heard of that. Yeah, there's that many different tools out there just now. The reason I'm asking is we always end up using different, certain little tools. So I always try and ask that question to see if there is something you're using that maybe I'm not and that I could be using.
There's a new site that I just heard of recently called Exploding Topics. It's a Brian Dean product, which is pretty interesting. It shows all the different categories and topics that are peaking at the moment to see what things you might want to be writing about. So that's an interesting tool I'm looking at that I just discovered recently.
Yeah, no, it's interesting stuff. So focusing on what you do, making that a good, solid agency, specializing in something is something I think is a great idea. But surely you've had issues along the way building up your agency. What does your team look like? Is it all in-house people? Do you use remote workers? What's your kind of overall setup like just now?
So I use remote workers, but I use the same one. So I had to, in that initial phase of growing, I would reach out to freelancers and have all sorts of issues with them. So I cycled through about 20 different people until I found a few core people that I really, really like and are really, really excellent at their job. So we have a lead SEO, we have someone backlinking specialist who also helps with the SEO. We have a few content writers, which is also extremely difficult to find people that can write really good content. So I'm thrilled with the ones we have in the moment. And then it's just me and a couple other strategic partners. So we chose to work with other businesses that help to sort of take some of the load off as well.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say to you, and I think you've already established that with what you just said, finding good content writers is not an easy thing to do. Over my years of being an agency owner, and even now, for affiliate projects or whatever, or just projects that I get involved in, I always have to find a good, go out and find a good content writer, and tried everything from people in the Philippines, India, Eastern Europe. I've used native English speakers who are just lazy. I've tried US people. I've tried everything. What I do actually find that works quite well is I'm finding a lot of good people from South Africa where the cost of living is relatively cheap and native language is still English. But have you got any tips for us in terms of how to, because someone else could be starting out their journey listening to this saying, fucking hell, give us a clue. Where the hell do you find a good writer? Because surely you've went through, given what you do, countless writers and had to fire them and looked at the content going, I can't believe I've had to try and pay for someone wanting me to pay for this.
Yeah.
So where can we go, if we're new to this to cut out some of that bullshit, so to speak?
So I think the best advice I would have on that which obviously it's like you mentioned, still learning, trying to find it. I don't know if there's any tried and true method. Is just create. I use Upwork to find the writers, but just creating a super thorough outline of exactly what you're looking for to sort of limit the amount of people that are interested in it. And then once you find a writer, providing a super in-depth outline, section by section, keywords that you want to include, topics you want to cover, maybe even recording a video about the piece of content to give them full insights about to what you're thinking, where you want to go, giving them examples of the tone and the conversation. So putting in a lot of time in the outline helps to at least guide the writer in the right direction and making sure they're going in the right place. And then also when you're researching the writers, make sure you read some of their stuff or a good amount of their stuff. Make sure they've written in blogs before, making sure they've done the work and they've gotten results. And now that might be, and depending on your budget, spending more than you're comfortable with, probably, because when you go to those really affordable writers, you're going to run into trouble and you're probably going to have to end up rewriting the piece altogether. So if you have any room for the budget, it's easier to invest a little bit more and get a better product, and it saves you time and money in the long run.
Yeah, well, that was going to be the next question. Do you scrimp and scrape, or do you take it on the chin and pay a little bit more? Is the question. I keep hearing friends saying, "Oh, I've got this content writer and they're really cheap and they're doing it for like $8 for 1,000 words." And I'm like, what? Where do you find these people? And they're like, "It's amazing content." And I'm like, I don't know if they're just, yanking my chain or talking shit or whatever. But yeah, I'm just curious to know because, I'm a believer in, I don't mind paying a little bit more if the quality's there. I found that over time. Obviously, as a businessman, we want things cheap so that we can make profit. But I think sometimes you have to, especially where content's concerned, invest a little bit more for that quality. And I think obviously having your process right as well, for giving the content writer the right instructions is also a key part of the process. Because other than that, I've given people, I thought, I'll get a content writer and they seem a normal human being and they seem to have common sense. Then you get the content back and you're like, what? Right. So there's a story actually. So we had this customer and he used to deliver alcohol to people's houses at night time. So if you were in a house party, you could literally phone this guy up and say, bring over 4 crates of bud, 3 bottles of wine and a bottle of vodka, deliver it to my house, and he'd be out within the hour. So we wanted to be found in a whole bunch of different areas surrounding where I stay. And I said to the content writer, can you write some articles just as a test about alcohol delivery in Glasgow and all these kind of areas? So she went away. She came back with an article and it said why you shouldn't drink in the street. Why alcohol can kill your liver and all of these things. And you're like, what part of we just deliver this shit to your house do you not get? And she's like, but it can't be that easy. And I'm like, is that fucking easy? This guy delivers this Audi. He doesn't want to talk about drinking in the street. What the fuck? So I think sometimes when it comes to content, having that process, that at that point I was like, these people are not getting it. They have to be given a fucking, they have to have their hand held basically and say, you have to write this because this is all I want. It doesn't have to be rocket science.
Yeah.
But as I say, it's like pulling teeth. Finding good content writers are really, everyone I know says the same thing. So I was just curious what your setup looked like for that. But obviously you're five years into SEO. How long has Acer Inbound been around for?
About 18 months, I think. Yeah,
18 months. And so you said there, you want to focus on content and doing that kind of stuff. Is it only Americans you deal with, or do you deal with clients all over the world?
Right now, it's only American-based companies that we work with, but we're not limiting ourselves to that. That's just sort of how how it's panned out so far.
But I was just curious. Again, other people will be watching. They'll be like, does he work in a niche, or can anyone come to you at all? Does it matter what the niche is, or are you a specialist in a niche?
No, we don't have a niche. So that topic has been thrown around whether or not we're considering that. We found that B2B companies are probably the most effective ones to work with, and retail is a little bit more challenging, but we do that as well. What are your thoughts about sticking to one specific niche?
I think you're better becoming a specialist in like content and stuff. I wouldn't be sticking to only doing it for lawyers or something like that, because I think, although lawyers are probably a good niche to get into, it would be boring for your staff as well. You just you need a bit of brain stimulation and finding out about new stuff. So if someone came to you, in some weird, quirky niche, you'd be like, oh, we're learning something new. At least you've got that stimulation. So I think what you're doing as a business, focusing on niching down on the service that you offer is a great thing. But I certainly wouldn't be niching down and certainly the types of clients I was working with. I think that would be suicide. Your clients would be, pulling their hair. Your staff would be pulling their hair out after a while, I think, of just doing that. But I've seen, people that have been relatively successful with it as well. They only specialize in, dentistry SEO or whatever, and they make a lot of money. So, but nah, I think you've got to think of the overall bigger picture and, people's mental health and stuff like that. If you were writing about dentists all day, every day, I think your your staff retention rate would be horrendous.
That's actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because that's exactly what we were considering and thinking about, and we were thinking about maybe dentists, but then I came to the same conclusion, like, man, that'd be boring. I don't want to do that. Yeah.
You're doing it, and you're doing it for a dentist in Jacksonville, then one in New York. It's the same shit, teeth whitening, whatever. I couldn't do it. And I would feel sorry for anyone else who was fully focused on it. But, that's just a personal opinion. I'm sure it is still a great business model, but nah, I wouldn't niche down. And I think also for yourself, opportunities sometimes arise from dealing with clients, so if you're open to dealing with any type of client, you may get another opportunity or another thing in another industry that you weren't even thinking about. So, I think you'd need to be careful not to close yourself down too quickly. But other than that, what you're doing, you've done that for the last 18 months. What are the future plans other than doing a bit more of what you're doing? Do you go to networking events? Do you, where would people find you? Or are you the quiet guy that never goes out? Do you ever go to networking events at all?
Well, I mean, I intended to, but then the world sort of shut down, so those have been off the grid for a while. But yeah, right now we're sort of exploring all these different options. We're building, obviously, organically, because that's what we do. So we're building out the website. We're focused on building also maybe a learning center, a resource center, maybe some courses like you've created. So I'd be really interested to hear more about that and sort of what your thoughts were in that model.
I mean, courses is a great thing. Certainly for revenue, you can charge people for them. Certainly exposure, again, there's nothing like good exposure if you're giving back to the community and giving them good information. It's certainly something that helps build your profile. So I think doing courses is great. The only downside to doing courses is the amount of time that it does take up. It's a lot of hard work. I think a lot of people think I could knock out a course in a day. Courses that I gave away were made over months and months and months of constant filming, putting stuff together, changing it, and it's a lot of hard work, but it can be fairly lucrative as well. And it's a good lead magnet to get people to sign up, so you can do deals like Black Friday, come in and get it for this price, or I'm giving it away to 3 lucky people this month, so you can also use it as a lead magnet to build your mailing list and build your social media and all that stuff. So I think, doing a course is a great step in the right direction in terms of building your business brand and your personal brand and all that stuff. So I certainly wouldn't not do it. As I say, it's a hard slog, and sometimes you're just like, is that 3 or 4 months of recording really going to pay off? And it does pay itself. I think what I would say to anyone is I sold a lot of courses in the last couple of Black Fridays, and I literally sat there all day refreshing my PayPal, could not believe the amounts of money that was rolling in.
That's awesome.
So you don't even have to charge high for your course. If you go in low, and you do, people won't snuff at buying something for $200. When you start trying to charge £500 or £1,000, people have to think about it, potentially have to save up for it. If it's like $197, they'll just fucking buy it there and then and say, if it's shit, it's shit. It doesn't really matter. So I think you have to get the pricing point right as well. So, but yeah, I think that would be good for getting yourself out there more. Obviously, your early days into building your agency, 18 months is rookie. You're still a rookie. But that'll be interesting to see how that grows and how you grow as well. And hopefully, I think, doing networking and going to events, conferences and stuff is another great way to meet up with other people, also get your self-development, but also meet all these contacts and stuff as well. So, yeah, I think you should have a look at that.
Yeah, for sure. Was that your sort of primary growth strategy early on?
Not really. I done it the reverse. So I was the guy that had an agency that didn't want to talk to anyone. And then a guy that was the face of my company left and wanted to set up himself. So all of the clients had no idea who I was. And I thought to myself, fuck, you're in a pretty dangerous position. No one knows who you are. You could be the best SEO in the world, but no one knows who you are. So why would they continue to pay you? For that reason alone, I decided to say, fuck this, I'm going to make sure people know who I am, and rebranded and became the face of it. So I was kind of pushed, but glad I did. It's a new experience, and you get to meet loads of new people and stuff as well. So it's all good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sort of doing that in reverse, trying to get the name out there and try to connect with as many people in the industry as I can, doing stuff like this.
I think if I had my time, if I could put the clock back, I would certainly do it your way than the way I done it, for sure. It's definitely the right thing to do, is put your face out there and get a lot more of the work that's out there. But sadly, we are out of time, Richard. We could talk all day, no doubt, about SEO, and we can maybe get you back on in future to talk about a few other bits and bobs. But for anyone who likes what you've got to say, where is the best place to find you? Is it your Acer Inbound website? Is it your social media? Where's the best place to get a hold of you?
Probably the website or LinkedIn, so acerinbound.com, or you can message me on LinkedIn and we can have a conversation.
Cool, no worries. Well, when this goes live, the links to Richard's LinkedIn and his website will be below there. But thank you very much, Richard, for taking the time to come on and telling us a bit about your story and what you do. It has been a pleasure.
The pleasure's been all mine.